I'm the dust keeper. Your home. It's supposed to be your fortress. The one place where you lock the door and know with certainty that nothing can reach you. But what happens when that certainty is shattered? When you discover that being alone in your home doesn't mean you're truly alone. Tonight, I bring you 3 documented accounts of people who learned that home invasions don't always announce themselves with broken windows and forced entry. Sometimes the invasion is quiet, patient, already inside. The dust I collected from these homes carries memories of fear, of the moment when safety became uncertainty. These stories are documented, verified, and in every single case, the people involved will never feel completely safe in their homes again. This happened in October 2022. Nicole Martinez, 28 years old, moved into a rental house in suburban Pennsylvania. A small 2-bedroom built in the 1960s. Quiet neighborhood, good schools, safe area. Exactly what she wanted after living in apartments for 5 years. The house had an attic access panel in the hallway ceiling. Pull-down stairs. The landlord mentioned it during the walkthrough. Just storage space up there. You can use it if you want, but there's nothing up there now. Nicole never opened it. She didn't need attic storage. The panel stayed closed for 3 months. In January, she started noticing small things. Nothing alarming, just odd. Items in her kitchen would be in different places when she came home from work. A coffee mug on the right side of the sink that she'd left on the left. A chair pulled slightly away from the table. Small changes, easy to dismiss as memory errors. Then the food started disappearing. Not all at once, just a little. Half a loaf of bread she'd bought 2 days ago would be gone. Eggs missing from the carton. A package of deli meat opened and partially eaten. Nicole lived alone. She blamed herself. Maybe she was eating more than she realized. Stress eating, not paying attention. On January 19th, she came home from work at 6 p.m., unlocked her front door, stepped inside, immediately felt that something was wrong. The air was different, not smell exactly, just disturbed, like someone had recently been moving through her space. She checked the doors, both locked, windows secure, nothing missing that she could see. But the feeling persisted. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her house. Old houses make sounds. She knew that. Settling, expanding, contracting, normal sounds. But at 2:17 a.m., she heard something that wasn't normal. A creak from the hallway. The sound of weight on floorboards. Slow, deliberate, like someone trying to walk quietly, but not quite succeeding. Nicole froze. Her bedroom door was open. She could see the hallway from her bed. The nightlight provided just enough illumination to see shapes. The hallway was empty, but the sound continued. Creak, pause, creak, pause, moving toward her room. Then it stopped, right outside her doorway. Nicole held her breath, stared at the empty hallway. Nothing there, but she could feel it. Someone standing just beyond the doorframe, watching. For 3 minutes, nothing moved. Then, slowly, deliberately, she heard footsteps retreat back down the hallway. The sound of something wooden moving. A click. Silence. At dawn, Nicole got out of bed, checked the entire house. Empty. Doors still locked. Windows secure. She convinced herself it was house sounds. imagination, fear playing tricks. But when she walked into the hallway, she noticed something that made her stomach drop. The attic panel, the pull-down stairs, they were extended, hanging down into the hallway. The opening to the attic dark and exposed. She hadn't opened them. She'd never opened them. They'd been closed when she went to bed. Nicole grabbed her phone and called the police. While she waited for them to arrive, she stood in her living room, staring at that open attic entrance, and she realized something that made her physically sick. Her bedroom was directly below that access point. If someone was in the attic, they could hear everything she did, every movement, every phone call. They could watch her through the cracks in the ceiling panel. The police arrived. 2 officers checked the attic. One climbed up with a flashlight, while Nicole waited below, heart pounding. The officer was up there for 5 minutes. When he came down, his expression was grim. "Ma'am, you need to see this." They went up together. The attic was exactly as the landlord described. Unfinished space, wooden beams, insulation. But in the far corner, tucked behind the HVAC unit, there was something that shouldn't be there. A sleeping bag, neatly rolled, a pillow, empty food containers, bread bags, chip wrappers, deli meat packaging, a flashlight, a water bottle, and worst of all, a small collection of Nicole's belongings, a hairbrush, a photo from her nightstand, a t-shirt from her laundry hamper. Someone had been living in her attic for weeks, maybe months, since before she moved in, coming down at night when she was asleep, taking food, taking her things, watching her. The police dusted for fingerprints, found DNA evidence, launched an investigation. The person was never identified. No forced entry, no signs of how they'd been getting in and out. The attic had no external access, no broken seals on windows or vents. Whoever it was, they had a key, or had been there so long they knew the house's secrets, ways in that even Nicole didn't know about. Nicole broke her lease that day, moved into a hotel, eventually moved to a different state. She never felt safe in that house again. Never felt safe in any house again. Because once you know someone was living in your walls, watching you while you slept, learning your routines, you can never unhear the sounds your house makes at night. You can never be certain you're truly alone. The house was eventually sold. The new owners were never told about the attic tenant. The landlord didn't think it was necessary to disclose. Sometimes late at night, those new owners hear sounds from the attic, footsteps, movement, but when they check, they find nothing, just empty space, and the lingering feeling that someone was there a moment ago, waiting, watching, wondering when they'll leave again, so whoever lives in the attic can come down. Not every home invasion is physical. Sometimes the intrusion is something else, something that can't be locked out, something that doesn't need a door, something that has a key because it never left. Before we continue to the second account, hit subscribe if you want more stories like this. Trust me, the next one is even worse. This is the account of Michael Torres, 35 years old, living in a duplex in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He'd bought the place in 2021, his first home, a fixer-upper that needed work but had good bones. Built in 1952, previous owner had lived there for 40 years before passing away in 2020. Michael was handy. He spent weekends renovating, painting, updating, making it his own. By summer 2022, the place looked completely different. Modern, clean, his. In August, he started noticing something strange. His mail would be opened, not every day, just occasionally. A bill here, a letter there, slit open neatly, contents removed, then placed back in his mailbox. He reported it to the postal service. They investigated, couldn't find any evidence of mail tampering at their end. Suggested he install a locking mailbox. He did. The mail tampering stopped, but something else started. Items in his house would be moved. Small things. A book he'd left on the coffee table would be on the kitchen counter. TV remote in a different room. Keys moved from one hook to another. Michael lived alone. No roommates, no girlfriend, no pets. He started wondering if he was losing his mind. Early onset memory issues, stress. He saw a doctor. Nothing wrong. Clean bill of health. In September, he installed security cameras. One at the front door, one covering the living room, one in the kitchen. If someone was getting in, he'd have proof. For 2 weeks, nothing. The cameras recorded empty rooms, him coming and going for work, normal activity. Then, on September 23rd, the cameras caught something. Michael was at work. The timestamp showed 10:17 a.m. The front door opened. A woman walked in, elderly, maybe 70s, wearing a floral dress. She had a key. She walked through his living room like she owned the place, went to the kitchen, made herself a cup of tea, sat at his table, read his mail, calmly, casually, like this was completely normal. She stayed for 2 hours, watching his TV, organizing some of his things, watering his plants. At 12:34 p.m., she washed her teacup, dried it, put it back in the cupboard. Then she walked out the front door, locked it behind her. Michael watched this footage in horror. Who was this woman? How did she have a key? Why was she in his house? He called the police, showed them the footage. They were as confused as he was. They ran facial recognition. Nothing came up. No criminal record. No missing persons report matching her description. Michael changed his locks that day. All of them. New deadbolts, new keys. There was no way she could get in now. The next day, September 24th, at 10:15 a.m., she came back. The cameras caught her. She walked up to his door, tried her old key. It didn't work. She stood there for a moment, confused. Then she pulled out a different key. This one worked. She walked in. Michael was watching this remotely from work. He immediately called the police, raced home. The police arrived first. They found the woman in his kitchen, making tea. She looked at them calmly. No fear, no guilt, just mild confusion about why they were upset. "This is my house," she said simply. "I've lived here for 40 years. The officers explained that she no longer lived there. The house had been sold. She needed to leave. She looked around, seeing the changes Michael had made, the new paint, the renovations, and her expression shifted, not anger, sadness. "Oh," she said quietly, "I died, didn't I?" The officers went silent. Michael, who'd just arrived, stood frozen in his doorway. The woman set down her teacup. "I remember now. I was in the kitchen. I felt dizzy. I sat down, and then, I don't remember anything after that, but I kept coming back. This is my home. I didn't know how to leave." Michael pulled up property records. The previous owner, Margaret Sutton, died in the home in March 2020. Natural causes. Found by a neighbor 3 days later. She'd been sitting at the kitchen table, the same table Michael now owned, the same chair where this woman had been sitting, making tea, like she'd done every morning for 40 years. Margaret looked at Michael. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you. I didn't know I was dead. I thought everyone else had left, but the house was still here, so I stayed." She stood up, walked toward the back of the house. The officers and Michael followed. She stopped at the bedroom closet, reached up to the top shelf, pulled down a small wooden box. "My husband made this before he passed. I hid it here. I wanted someone to have it, someone who would take care of the house." She handed the box to Michael. Inside were old photos, letters, a wedding ring, memories of a life lived in these walls. Margaret smiled. "Thank you for taking care of my home. It looks beautiful." And then she walked toward the back door, opened it, stepped outside into the yard. The officers and Michael followed her, but when they reached the door, she was gone. Just gone. The yard was empty. Fence still closed. No one there. Michael had the house blessed the next week. A priest came, performed a ceremony. Since then, Margaret hasn't returned. The doors stay locked. Nothing moves on its own. The cameras show only Michael. But sometimes, early in the morning, when Michael makes his coffee, he smells something else. Floral perfume. The faint scent of the tea Margaret used to make. And his teacups, the ones he keeps on the top shelf that he never uses, sometimes have wet rings inside them, as if someone just washed them and put them away. Michael doesn't mind. He understands now. The house was hers long before it was his, and maybe part of her will always be there, not haunting, just visiting, checking on the home she loved, making sure someone takes care of it. He leaves a teacup out sometimes, on the kitchen counter, just in case. And in the morning, it's always clean, dried, put away properly, the way Margaret would have done it for 40 years. Not every presence in your home is malicious. Some are protective, some are trying to help, but that doesn't make them less terrifying when you discover them, especially when they're trying to warn you about something you can't yet see. This happened in April 2023. Daniel Wright, 32 years old, was a single father living in suburban Michigan. His wife, Rachel, had died during childbirth the previous year. Complications, unexpected, devastating. He was left alone with their daughter, Emma, 6 months old. Daniel threw himself into fatherhood. It was the only thing that kept him going. Every moment focused on Emma, making sure she was safe, healthy, loved. He was terrified of something happening to her. The fear kept him up at night, so he installed a high-end baby monitor in Emma's room. Video and audio. He could watch her from his phone, check on her constantly, make sure she was breathing, safe. For the first few months, the monitor was just a tool, functional. He'd check it before bed, glance at it during the night, see Emma sleeping peacefully. It brought him comfort. In April, something changed. Daniel was in the kitchen around 8 p.m. Emma was asleep in her crib. He heard the monitor activate, not Emma crying, something else, a sound, humming, soft, melodic, a lullaby. Daniel pulled out his phone, checked the monitor. The video showed Emma in her crib, sleeping, but the audio clearly picked up humming, a woman's voice, gentle, soothing. Daniel walked quickly to Emma's room, opened the door. The humming stopped immediately. Emma was alone, asleep, no one else there. Windows locked, door had been closed. He convinced himself it was interference. Baby monitors sometimes picked up other signals, neighbors, random transmissions, technology glitches, but it happened again The next night, same time, 8 p.m., the same lullaby, the same woman's voice, humming to Emma like a mother would. Daniel reviewed the audio recordings. The lullaby was always the same tune, always perfectly on key, always the same gentle rhythm, but the video never showed anyone in the room except Emma. On the third night, Daniel sat in Emma's room, waited for 8 p.m., watched his daughter sleep. At exactly 8:02 p.m., he heard it, not through the monitor, live, in the room with him, the humming, right next to the crib, a woman's voice, clear, real, but no one was there. He could see every corner of the room, empty. The humming continued for 3 minutes, then stopped. Emma slept through it all, peaceful, undisturbed. Daniel was terrified, but also confused. The presence didn't feel malicious. It felt maternal, protective, like someone watching over Emma, someone who cared about her. He started researching, read about paranormal activity, protective spirits. The idea seemed insane, but what else could explain it? On April 18th, something different happened. Daniel was asleep in his bedroom, Emma in her room across the hall. At 2:47 a.m., the baby monitor alarm went off. Not the usual notifications, an emergency alert, loud, insistent. But Emma wasn't crying. Daniel checked his phone. The video showed Emma sleeping, but the audio was different. The woman's voice, not humming this time, speaking, urgent. Daniel, wake up, check the house, now. His wife's name was Rachel, but this voice, it sounded like her. The cadence, the tone, the way she'd say his name when something was important. Daniel got out of bed, confused, frightened, but something in that voice made him move. He walked through his house, checking, living room, kitchen, nothing unusual. Then he smelled it. Gas. Faint, coming from the kitchen, the stove. One of the burners had been left slightly on, not enough to ignite, just enough to leak gas into the house. He'd used the stove earlier to make dinner, thought he'd turned everything off, but apparently one knob hadn't quite clicked to the off position. If he'd slept through the night, the gas could have built up to dangerous levels. Emma's room was directly above the kitchen. She would have been affected first. Daniel turned off the gas, opened windows, checked the CO2 detectors. They hadn't gone off yet. The leak wasn't severe enough yet, but it would have been in another hour, maybe 2. He stood in the kitchen, hands shaking. The voice on the monitor had warned him, in time, had potentially saved both their lives. He went to Emma's room. She was still sleeping, peaceful, safe. And for the first time since Rachel died, Daniel felt like he wasn't completely alone in taking care of their daughter. The next day, he did something he'd been avoiding. He called Rachel's mother, Emma's grandmother, asked her to come over. When she arrived, he played the audio recording from the monitor. The lullaby, the warning, the voice. Rachel's mother listened, started crying. That's the lullaby I used to sing to Rachel when she was a baby. The same one, the exact tune. She loved it. She said if she ever had children, she'd sing it to them too. Daniel showed her the timestamps, the recordings, the consistency. Rachel's mother sat in Emma's room, quiet, then spoke to the empty air. Thank you, baby. Thank you for watching over her, for watching over him. That night, the humming came again at 8 p.m. But this time, Daniel sat in Emma's room, listening, not afraid, grateful. Thank you, Rachel, he whispered. Thank you for not leaving us. The humming continued, gentle, loving, a mother singing to her daughter, a wife protecting her family. It still happens. Every night at 8 p.m. Emma is almost 2 now. She's starting to respond to the lullaby, smiling in her sleep, reaching towards something Daniel can't see, someone he can't see, but he knows who it is, and he knows Emma will never grow up without a mother. Rachel is still there, still watching, still singing. The baby monitor records it all. Daniel saves every recording. One day, when Emma is older, he'll play them for her. He'll tell her that her mother never left, that love doesn't end, that some bonds are stronger than death. And late at night, when Daniel checks the monitor before bed, sometimes he sees something on the video that wasn't there a second ago. A shadow next to the crib, the shape of a woman, bending over Emma, gentle, protective. The shadow never moves toward him, never threatens. It just watches over Emma. And when Daniel whispers, "Thank you," the shadow seems to pause, as if acknowledging him, as if Rachel is saying, "You're welcome. I'm here. I'll always be here." Daniel still lives in that house. Emma is growing up surrounded by love from her father and from a presence that hums lullabies at 8 p.m. every single night. A presence that once warned them about danger, that watches over them, that never truly left. Because some bonds can't be broken, some love doesn't end, and sometimes the presence in your home isn't something to fear. It's someone making sure you're never truly alone.